Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and we're going to be continuing on with our read-through of Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. We are up to Interlude 2, the second interlude between Part 1 and Part 2 of the first book here in the Stormlight Archives. And we are going to meet a new character. This character has been referenced earlier. This is one of Shalan's brothers. And we're going to dip back into her childhood home in the Devar Gardens, the Devar Mansion. And we're going to meet Nan Balat. Nan Balat. And the little interlude begins with a rather troubling sentence. We read, Nan Balat liked killing things. So already here we are dealing with someone who doesn't seem to be entirely right. The next sentence, I guess, makes us feel a little bit better. Not people. Never people, but animals, those he could kill, particularly the little ones. He wasn't sure why it made him feel better, it simply did. So, I guess we took one step forward, but it does again seem like we took 3 steps backwards. So what's Nan Balat's problem? Well, he's sitting at the mansion and he's pulling off the legs of this small crab. A lot of the animals in Roshar are not what you would think of as our typical like cows or goats or sheep or things like that. We're going to get some familiar creatures, but we're introduced to a lot of crab-like creatures, and part of that is because it seems that nature has really adapted to life on Roshar. And because of the high storm that continually swirls around the planet, destroying everything in its wake, unless it is either so secure, or as we're going to find here, even with the grass and the plants themselves, they actually retract into the earth, into the ground. And so here, these small crabs, certainly they have shells that they can burrow into and hide. Well, Nan Balat here is thinking about Shalan going to try to accomplish her task of connecting with Jasnah Colin and trying to steal her Soulcaster. He is meditating really within his own brain, asking himself if he's a coward because he sent his sister to do this. He's sort of rationalizing it. Only a girl would be able to get that close to Jasnah. Certainly I would have had no chance. So even if I am acting cowardly by sending her, in this instance, it's not like anything else could have happened. Well, he's walking around and he comes up to his pet, Scrack. And Scrack is not a normal hound, a normal dog. Scrack is an axe hound. And this creature is very canine in its nature, but certainly not a dog. Scrack was playing with some type of creature that he found. He was trying to sort of pull it apart and even chew it up. But we read here, the large axe hound rolled about, gnawing at the object, antenna pulled back flat against her skull. And so here we read that this axe hound has antenna. And more than that, we read a little later that the axe hound has 6 legs. 6 legs extending before her as she sat on her haunches. Axe hounds didn't have shells or skin. Instead, their body was covered with the fusion of the two. Smooth to the touch, but a little bit more pliable than like the shell of a crab. And the face is looking up at Nan Balat, and he's actually going to pet her behind what we read as her ear holes. So a weird looking creature. If I'm able to find a picture of it, I'll put it up here for us so that we can sort of observe what we're talking about. But yes, just again, a very unique creature, though it is very much dog-like. Loyal, the pet, certainly a pet for Nan Balat. He's walking around and he's thinking. He sits back down and picks up another crab that was hiding, and with it hiding, he begins to pull off the legs, making him feel a little bit better. And so what is the problem here? What has put Nan Balat in such a difficult emotional place? Well, he reflects of his other family members. One is a brother, Asha Jushu, and their childhood has driven him to vice. We don't know what that vice is at this point. We'll find out later. But it has driven Asha Jushu to vice, and Tet Wakim to despair. This is another brother. Tet Wakim to despair. And we read that they were a broken family. Years of suffering, their father's brutal temper had driven Ashashushudevice, Tet Wakim to despair. And almost comically, we read the next sentence, only Balat had escaped unscathed. And from that first sentence, that is not true. Nan Balat has not escaped emotionally unscathed because he likes to kill things, okay? So he also considers Shalan, and he reflects that only she had been left alone by their angry father, and he had actually hated her for that. But then when he thought about it more, he asks, but how could someone hate someone like Shalan? Shy, quiet, delicate, and then he considers that she's probably terrified right now. It was a wonder she'd done as much as she had done. I think he doesn't give Shalan enough credit, as we've seen earlier in the story. Sure, Shalan may be a little bit out of her depth, but she's certainly capable. And so, good for her. But then he goes one more step and he considers another brother. This brother has died. He says, if only Helaran had survived, their eldest brother, then known as Non-Helaran, because he had been the first son, and he had stood up to their father repeatedly. Then he goes on to say, well, he was dead now, and so was their father. But they had left behind a family of cripples. And this is true. This family here, the Devar family, they are in a rough patch. And again, we don't know everything. We'll find out later in the story what Sanderson wants us to find out. But certainly we have a family here that are very much emotionally distraught. We sort of finish with Wakim, the other brother, shouting out to Balat, and he comes up onto the porch. He says, what? Standing up, and Wakim rushes down and says, we have a problem. Balat responds, how big a problem? And Wakim answers, pretty big, I'd say. Come on. And so that's how this interlude ends. One other thing I guess I should mention about Nan Balat is that at the very beginning, he is limping on a cane. He can barely hobble around, and actually the doctors had considered this break in his leg. The doctors had considered removing the leg, amputating it, but he's thankful that they didn't do that, although he was definitely now for the rest of his life committed to this cane. He says 23 years old and already a cripple. So Nan Balat in a rough spot emotionally, in a rough spot physically, and certainly the Devar household. All of their eggs have been put in the basket of Shalan stealing this Soulcaster. What is the thing that Wakim let him know was the big issue? Well, we'll find out later. But that is the second interlude, a little glimpse into the Devar household, and it is not good what we see. Thanks so much for watching. We will catch you on the next video where we'll continue on with the next interlude. We'll look forward to returning then, but until then, enjoy. Thank you so much for following along. If you could like and subscribe, that would be huge to help the channel to continue to grow. Appreciate it, and thanks so much for watching.